You probably don't think about sugar very much. You buy it, eat it, and move on. But in 2022, the US government blocked sugar imports from one of the largest plantations in the Caribbean, after investigators found multiple indicators of forced labor. Workers were cutting cane for 13 hours a day in extreme heat. They were living in company towns with no running water. They were earning $125 a month. The plantation behind it is partly owned by a family worth over $8 billion. That family donates millions to both political parties, owns Domino Sugar, and has spent 60 years building one of the most politically protected empires in American agriculture. This is the story of how the Fanjuls family turned sugar into political power, and why almost no one has been able to stop them. The Fanjuls family fled Cuba in 1959 when Fidel Castro's revolution seized their sugar empire, but they did not arrive in Florida empty-handed. Alfonso Fanjuls Sr. had already accumulated assets in the United States. Within 2 years, he raised $640,000 from fellow Cuban exiles and bought 4,000 acres of swampland near Lake Okeechobee. He brought sugar mill equipment by barge from Louisiana and reassembled it piece by piece. By 1961, the family was back in business. They called their new company Osceola Farms. But the Fanjuls had learned a lesson in Cuba that would define everything that followed. Wealth alone was not enough. Governments could take wealth. Revolutions could seize property. What you needed was political power. And in America, political power was available to anyone willing to pay for it. The family's two eldest sons, Alfonso Jr. and Jose, took over operations as they came of age. Everyone called them Alfie and Pipe. Both earned business degrees. Both learned the sugar trade from their father. And together, they developed a political strategy that would make the family untouchable for decades. Alfie became a Democrat. Pepe became a Republican. It was not a philosophical difference. It was not a family disagreement. It was a hedge, a calculated decision to ensure that no matter who controlled Washington, no matter which party held power, a Fanjul brother would have access to the people making decisions. But first, they needed to build something worth protecting. In 1984, the Fanjuls made the deal that would transform them from wealthy growers into one of the most powerful families in American agriculture. Gulf and Western Industries was selling its sugar operations in Florida and the Dominican Republic. The Fanjuls bought everything: 90,000 acres in Palm Beach County, 240,000 acres in the Dominican Republic, sugar mills, refineries, hotels, and an exclusive resort called Casa de Campo. Overnight, the family controlled enough land to make them the largest private landowners in 2 countries. But land was only part of the equation. The real source of Fanjul wealth was not sugar itself, not efficiency, not innovation. It was the federal government. The United States Sugar Program, established in its modern form in 1981, guarantees American sugar producers a minimum price far above the world market. The government restricts imports through quotas. It controls domestic supply through marketing allotments. It ensures that prices stay artificially high, year after year, decade after decade. The result is simple and brutal. Americans pay double what the rest of the world pays for sugar. Every candy bar costs more. Every soda costs more. Every baked good, every cereal, every product that contains sugar costs more because of this program. And the program is designed to look like it costs taxpayers nothing. There are no direct payments to farmers, no checks from the government. The cost is hidden in higher prices at the grocery store, spread across 330 million consumers who never see the bill. According to economists, the sugar program costs American consumers between $2.4 and $4 billion every single year, and that money flows directly to a handful of producers, less than 4,000 sugar farms, a few privately held refining companies, and above all, the Fanjuls. Time magazine called them the first family of corporate welfare. One analyst estimated the family receives at least $150 million per year in net benefit from federal subsidies alone. Sugar PAC donations exceed all other crop donations combined, despite sugar representing less than 2% of total U.S. crop value. A lobbyist once told the Washington Post, The sugar guys win votes because they are better at politics than anyone else. Here is where the story gets truly bizarre. On President's Day, 1996, President Bill Clinton was in the Oval Office. Monica Lewinsky was with him. According to the Star report, which would later lead to Clinton's impeachment, while Lewinsky was present, Clinton took a 22-minute phone call from a Florida sugar grower whose name, according to Lewinsky, was something like Fanjuls. White House phone logs confirmed it was Alfonso Fanjul. Think about what that means. The President of the United States, in the middle of an affair that would nearly destroy his presidency, took a 22-minute call from a sugar baron. That is how important the Fanjuls were. That is how much access they had purchased. Alfie Fanjul had been co-chair of Clinton's 1992 Florida campaign. His industry enjoyed special protections under Clinton's trade policies. He had given at least $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation. He met privately with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton on multiple occasions. And the Fanjuls had positioned themselves so perfectly that they would remain untouchable, regardless of who won any election. But the Fanjuls were not just Democrats. That was the entire point. 20 years later, in 2016, the family hosted separate fundraisers for both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump during the same election cycle. One brother raised money for the Democrat, the other raised money for the Republican. Both candidates came to their events. Since 2016, the Fanjul family and their companies have donated more than $7 million to Trump's campaign committees and super political action committees. Pepe Fanjul has co-hosted Trump fundraisers at exclusive venues. He organized an event on the same day Trump was convicted of falsifying business records in New York. When you donate to both sides, you never lose. When both parties owe you favors, no one can touch you. In the Dominican Republic, the Fanjuls own a 35% stake in Central Romana Corporation, the largest sugar producer and largest private landowner in the country. 166,000 acres of sugarcane, thousands of workers, and a labor system that federal investigators determined meets the international definition of forced labor. The workers live in settlements called Bat Eyes, company towns built next to the cane fields, owned by the company, controlled by the company. Most of the homes have no electricity, no running water, no sanitation, no paved roads. The majority of workers are Haitian or of Haitian descent. Many are undocumented, having crossed the border seeking work. Many are stateless, born in the Batays, but denied Dominican citizenship by discriminatory laws that stripped nationality from people of Haitian descent in 2013. They cannot vote. They cannot collect pensions. They cannot leave. They work into their 80s because they have no other choice. Federal investigators found workers earning $125 a month, cutting sugarcane with machetes, in summer heat that reaches 110 degrees. 13-hour days, 6 days a week. The average monthly salary in the Dominican Republic is $777. The cane cutters earn 1/6 of that. When a woman's husband died, she was told she could stay in company housing only if she took his job. She now cuts cane to keep a roof over her children's heads. In 2016, according to a lawsuit filed in U.S. federal court, armed guards working for Central Romana forced 24 families from their homes in the middle of the night. The guards allegedly demolished the settlements while children were still inside. No prior notice was given. No alternative housing was offered. In 2021, the company bulldozed another settlement just days before a U.S. congressional delegation was scheduled to visit and investigate labor conditions. In 2022, U.S. Customs and Border Protection announced it would block all sugar imports from Central Romana after finding 5 indicators of forced labor: abuse of vulnerability, isolation, withholding of wages, abusive working and living conditions, and excessive overtime. The Fanjul Corporation denied all allegations and called Central Romana a highly respected corporate citizen, but the company would not speak to reporters about the workers' conditions. They are, as one journalist put it, famously secretive. They rarely give interviews. They refuse most media requests. The Everglades were once called the River of Grass, a vast wetland stretching from Lake Okeechobee to Florida Bay, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a biosphere reserve, home to almost 750 species of mammals, birds, reptiles, and fish, the predominant water recharge area for all of South Florida. Today, 500,000 acres of what was once wetland is covered by sugar farms. The Fanjuls alone control 190,000 acres in Florida. They get their irrigation water from Lake Okeechobee for free. The runoff from those farms, laden with phosphorus and other fertilizers, flows south into the Everglades. It supercharges the growth of cattails that choke out native plants and clog the water system. It promotes the formation of methylmercury, which poisons fish. It fuels toxic algae blooms that close beaches and kill wildlife across South Florida. The cleanup is projected to cost billions of dollars. The multi-billion-dollar system of the water storage, cleaning, and conveyance south of the lake was built largely to benefit sugar growers. Taxpayers are paying for most of it. Under a 1994 law, sugar producers pay a capped $320 million, while the federal government and Florida taxpayers cover the rest. The Fanjuls have lobbied for decades against efforts to expand cleanup requirements. They have fought every proposal to have polluters pay more. When environmentalist Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, then 103 years old, saw the final legislation, she demanded her name be removed from the bill. She considered it a betrayal. But the pollution is only part of the story. There is also the smoke. Before harvest, sugar companies burn their cane fields. The fires eliminate leaves and make processing easier. They also send massive plumes of ash and particulate matter into the air. The annual particulate pollution from sugar field burning is roughly equivalent to the amount produced by every automobile in Florida for an entire year. The particulate matter is linked to cancer, asthma, and respiratory disease. And it falls overwhelmingly on the Black communities of Belle Glade, Pahokee, and South Bay, known collectively as Muck City. Residents call the ash black snow. It settles on cars, on homes, on children, on lungs. For decades, residents have complained about the smoke, but nothing changes. Here is the most damning detail. State officials restrict sugar burns when the wind blows east, toward Palm Beach, toward Wellington, toward the wealthy, predominantly white communities where the Fanjuls have their mansions. But no such restrictions protect Muck City. Documents from the Florida Department of Agriculture confirm this. When the wind blows toward money and power, the burns stop. When the wind blows toward Black communities with no political influence, the burns continue. The same state that protects the Fanjul mansions from smoke allows that smoke to drift over communities where residents have no lobbyists, no donations, no access. Jose, known as Pepe, Fanjul is 81 years old. His brother Alfie is older still. Together they have spent more than 6 decades building an empire that depends on government protection, political access, and labor practices that the United States government has called forced labor. They control the price of sugar. They fund both political parties. They pollute the Everglades and call it progress. They burn their fields over Black communities and call it agriculture. And they have done it all while remaining almost invisible. No interviews, no accountability, just quiet meetings with lawmakers, without staff present, and checks written to both sides of every campaign. In 2025, Pepe and Amelia Fanjul were among the donors who funded the demolition and rebuilding of the White House ballroom. When Trump learned that Coca-Cola did not use cane sugar in its products, he reportedly called his old friend Pepe Fanjul to discuss it. The call may have led to an announcement of a new Coca-Cola line made with American cane sugar. The Fanjuls will likely be involved. This is what concentrated wealth buys. Not just luxury, not just comfort, political immunity. The ability to operate across 2 countries, 2 parties, and 2 centuries of American policy without ever facing real consequences. The workers in the Batays have no such immunity. The residents of Muck City have no such access. The Everglades have no lobbyists. But the Fanjuls do. The next time you buy a bag of Domino sugar, or a box of C&H, or a package of Florida crystals, know where that money goes. It goes to a family that has mastered the art of American power. A family that donates to whoever is winning. A family that profits from labor practices the federal government calls forced labor. A family that pollutes a national treasure and makes taxpayers clean it up. A family that burns their fields over black communities while protecting their own mansions from smoke. They have done this for 65 years. They will continue until someone stops them. And so far, no one has. If you want more stories about the families and industries that shape American policy without your knowledge, subscribe. And tell me in the comments, did you know who owned Domino Sugar before today?